You're listening to The Jake Asman Show on the SportsMap Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
We waste no time with our next guest. He joins us every week here on the show to always talk all things NFL. And I spent some time with him this weekend. I watched him, captain his own boat until his dog Mac took over. He is the great Cole Thompson, who covers the NFL and college football for Sports Illustrated, and he joins us right now here on the show. Cole, appreciate the time, my man. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, I thought it was worth it. You spent 2 days with me, and the least I could do is wake up in time to do your show.
I did. We gave you the late spot today. We compromised. I knew you were going to be out drinking, enjoying the festivities of July 4th. So I said, look, Cole, I'm working. We need you on the show, but we'll give you the late time. How does that sound?
And it worked out. And you know what? I am feeling much better than I was an hour ago. So it's going to be definitely a good interview now than it was going to be when you wanted it probably at 8:40.
There you go. All right. So Pro Football Focus, I want to start with the Texans right here in town. Pro Football Focus came out with a list of the worst rosters in the NFL. And coming in at number 32 was the team you cover up close, the Houston Texans. Is it fair for PFF to think that the Texans have the worst roster in the league?
I think it's fair for there to be an argument that the Texans have the worst roster in the league. They don't really know what they're doing at quarterback. They have a lot of issues with extended contracts, guys like Whitney Merciless, a couple other players, guys like Jacob Martin, guys like Justin Reed going into a contract year. There's not really a sense of direction with most of this team. But what I will say is the addition of Lovie Smith may be able to at least salvage this defense from finishing dead last, more so probably in the top 25, maybe at best top 23. This is a 4-3 set that is going to be played a lot of zone in the Tampa 2 style. And a lot of the players who are successful in that defense are already on Houston's roster. They didn't work when they were playing in the 3-4 under Romeo Crennel over the past couple of years. So instead, you're switching up defenses. You have a couple players I really like. I think Desmond King was a great addition to the slot position. I really like that they have Justin Reed back there. I like that they still have Eric Murray on the team. I like that they did a little bit when it came to upgrading on defense with guys like Garrett Wallow and Roy Lopez, but they have a basis there. And they've also added players who fit that defense very well. Offensively, that was a problem. They don't have a number one receiver. I love Brandon Cooks, but he's a really high-end number 2. Nico Collins is a good player. I think he's going to have a good year because of nobody's going to be trying to guard him, and that could probably boost his stat line. But they have a quarterback issue. They still have an offensive line issue. They have 3 running backs all trying to prove that they deserve to stay in the league. Philip Lindsay might be the best of the bunch, and even he's more of a scat back kind of player. So I understand the arguments. I think when you look at other teams like Detroit, you could probably throw in maybe Philadelphia on that roster. There could be an argument that they are the 3 worst overall rosters, but I get why people are saying maybe the Texans actually come in dead last.
Cole, the Texans are really bad, like most people expect them to be. Could you see them being sellers at the trade deadline and maybe, recouping a bunch of draft picks here? I mean, we know this is a full rebuild. If I'm Nick Caserio and we're out of it at the deadline, I'm trying to trade anyone that could maybe get me back a mid-round pick. Would you go down that route if you were the Texans?
Well, I think it's kind of funny because Nick Caserio did what a lot of baseball GMs do. He gets a lot of one-year deal players or guys who are going into contract negotiations, and then when they know that they're out of the playoff race at the July 31st deadline, MLB players who are on bad teams going into contract years are usually traded. I could see Caserio doing something like that. They added 42 veterans via free agency or trade this past offseason, so there's a lot of players who were signed to one-year deals. I think only Kevin Pierre-Louis and there was one other player, I'm blanking on who it was right now, all signed one-year deals or less. So at that point, you're trying to get rid of as much contracts as possible, probably pick up conditional round picks, probably a fifth round pick that could turn into a fourth with a certain number of stat counts, a compensational, 6th round pick, anything along the lines of that to be able to get picked up. I could see that happening. I would get like a Brandon Cooks maybe being a higher end value. Maybe you get a 3rd round compensation pick for him or a 4th round compensation pick for him. I think Whitney Merciless, if he can have a good start to the year, maybe you can get like a 6th round pick back for him. But they definitely have some players who are going to be worth some value on the trade deadline. And at that point, if you know you're going to be going into a whole rebuild, you probably need to follow that pathway of what MLB GMs do and go ahead and start the rebuild by actually letting go of talent to get more picks.
Cole Thompson, NFL reporter for Sports Illustrated, covers the Texans up close for SI as well. Staying with the Texans, Cole, anything changed with Deshaun Watson's status? I mean, as we get closer and closer to training camp, we're going to hear more and more about what could happen. What's your take on where things stand right now?
Same place where it stood about 3 weeks ago when I was last asked this question. He will not be playing in 2021. There will be a mediation that will be held by the court system here in Harris County for Watson and his accusers to come forward and speak up. The deposition will start in February of 2022, where the women will have a chance to speak. Then in April, Watson will have a chance to speak. And until his name is cleared, it's very hard for Nick Caserio or anyone to really move him, not just because of we don't know how long of a suspension he's going to get, but also what is the asking price for a player who has a 4-year, $156 million deal and maybe will play for two of those 4 years because of a suspension. Maybe he'll never play again. It's a lot of a risk, but again, Watson's the top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He's 100% worth at least one first-round pick, even if you don't have him for a full year. But I just don't see any team making a risk right now to go out and get him, and I don't see a chance where Watson comes back and play in 2021.
Wow, so you think he's not playing at all this year? What if the NFL just suspends him for, let's say, 8 games or something like that? I mean, could you see him then coming back and playing even for the Texans? Would the Texans then trade him at that point? What are your thoughts on maybe a smaller suspension if, let's say, they settle before the season?
If they settle before the season, I expect him to at least miss half the season. I would say 9 games would be likely the suspension, somewhere around there. And then afterwards, Watson would have to have his agent, David Mulugheta, reach out to Nick Caserio, and they would have to come to an agreement to where either Watson will be back, he will finish out the year with the Texans, that way he can boost his draft capital, or he holds out, does not play for the team. The team doesn't have any offers at the moment. They wait until the offseason, then they likely trade him. I see option B more than likely it. I talked to a couple people who are inside the building, and it's very clear Deshaun Watson does not want to ever re-enter NRG Stadium for a handshake, let alone go play a game. So with that in mind, there's a very good shot I see him either sitting out until his name is completely cleared and he is traded, or the NFL just does not come to a decision in 2021.
Cole Thompson with us here on Twitter at Mr. Cole Thompson. If he is able to settle, let's say, before the year, serve some sort of suspension, do you see the Texans trading him in season? And is there a team that you think makes the most sense?
The team that makes the most sense is Denver. I think Denver's right there. You look at the overall offensive arsenal they have. Jerry Jeudy is a really solid number 2, and I think he can be a number 1. I think the biggest problem with him last year was he had to play that number 1 role with Courtland Sutton out with torn ACL in week 2. I like KJ Hamler in the slot. They do have a good run game. I love the addition of Javonte Williams from North Carolina. I think he's going to be a really good complement to Melvin Gordon. And they do have a good defense overall. They have really solid players like Alexander Johnson, Bryce Callahan, Justin Simmons now on a long-term deal, and his former teammate in Kareem Jackson. It makes a lot of sense because the only thing that's really keeping them from even being a postseason contender is the fact that Drew Lock is still banking on being the guy when everyone believes he's just continued to regress and it's not going to get better. I would say that's the best landing spot. The other one I would say, probably Miami. Miami has all the draft capital in the world to be able to go get this guy, be able to go get Watson. Watson wants to go to Miami. There's been multiple reports linking him to Brian Flores and Chris Greer. And again, Tua is the name under the most scrutiny going into the season. He didn't have a bad year last year. He had a very stereotypical rookie year. But when you're that hyped of a player, you start to regress a little bit. People wonder if you can ever live up to those expectations. And if this is the time where he cannot, going into year 2, but they've added weapons. They've added in Jalen Waddle, Will Fuller. They've gotten the offensive line a little bit better. They've stabilized the defense. This is a team that's looking like they are ready to contend for a Super Bowl going into 2021, despite playing in a very challenging AFC East with an emerging Jets team, with the Buffalo Bills, and a very, I don't know how to put them, but they are good New England team. And if that's going to be the thing that gets Miami over the hump, is by trading away 2 or 3 first-round picks or 2 first-round picks of a player to Houston to get Watson, Miami and Denver make the most sense. But I could also see him going to the NFC. That way, Houston doesn't have to worry about playing him much.
Cole, what's your take on the Cowboys being the team selected for Hard Knocks this summer?
I think it's going to be amazing. It should be exactly what everyone wants. But again, everyone wanted the Raiders when the Antonio Brown situation was going on. And look how little we got out of that and how unsatisfactory that was. The difference is that I believe John Gruden understands what it's like to be around the camera. So he knows when to keep his mouth shut at times. He knows when to not be always on the spotlight. Jerry Jones doesn't know that. Jerry Jones is just a comedian of his own, and he is a class of a man who I love to see whenever he talks. He just rambles on and on. If they do that and they get all that on camera, and then you can see the inside makings of what about Zeke? What about CeeDee Lamb? What about Dak Prescott? There's a lot to go with. And the fact that it's in California with Oxnard is really, really good. They're going to be able to get some really good shots out there. I very much thought that it was going to be Cincinnati because of Joe Burrow. But the fact that the Dallas Cowboys is a team on there, I think it is must-watch TV for the first episode. Please, though, HBO, make sure you do better than what you did with the Raiders.
I'm with you there. I hope that, Jerry Jones, who has a sense for the moment, doesn't try and, I guess the term would be micromanage what they show. Because what made the Raiders season, you're right, so disappointing, is that it was clear that the Raiders PR, whoever oversaw all the footage, and they barely gave us anything. You would hope with the Cowboys it'd be far different. And I think it will, Cole. I'll tell you what, I think Hard Knocks is a bounce-back season this year. I think it's going to be really good after. Last year was okay, and 2 years ago the Raiders was a big disappointment.
I agree. I very much like it. And I like the fact that most of the people that everyone wants to know about will have a storyline to kind of follow. Dak Prescott coming back from injury. Ezekiel Elliott coming back from being a little overweight and his fumbling issues. You have Amari Cooper looking to live up to that $100 million. Mike McCarthy looking to saying that I deserve more than one season to be the Dallas Cowboys head coach. There's a lot to like about this group. And as long as they don't micromanage everything, I am very excited to see where this goes.
I'm a little biased, but I still think the Jets in 2010 was the best ever Hard Knock season. Rex Ryan, no one's beating the let's go get a bleep snack speech.
Okay, that one may be my favorite overall of the series, but the very first episode of the animosity between Hugh Jackson and
Todd Haley. Yep.
Todd Haley. That will always be my favorite scene in any Hard Knocks ever. That will always trump everything else.
Yeah, the Browns was a very good one too, because you had Bob Wiley, him doing the hut with his stomach, and him talking about why are we stretching? You think guys before World War II rushing the rushing the beaches of Normandy, you think they were stretching? I mean, it's tough to top the Browns. I would say the Browns and the Jets were neck and neck.
Carl Nassib too. You gotta.
Oh yeah.
Anytime you're just giving somebody financial advice on live television is always fun.
No doubt about it. All right, finally, Cole, I asked this question to Ron earlier, and I know you guys were, working together over the weekend on, talking July 4th. Hot dog or hamburger on July 4th? What's more of your go-to?
So if it's a hot dog or a hamburger, I still go hot dog. But if it's brats over anything, it is brats. Brats are an absolutely go-to American tradition. They weren't created by Americans. They were created overseas. We all know the story. They're created in Germany, but it is exactly what you need for 4th of July. Brat, a little bit of mustard. Maybe if you're feeling a little spicy, add some relish or add some pickled jalapenos. Enjoy your day. That is exactly what you need.
I had a tweeter that wrote in earlier, Chicago hot dog or Texas style with brisket. Now, you have family from Chicago. You lived in Houston, Texas your whole life. You're perfectly equipped to answer that question as well.
I hate to be this guy, and Texas is going to kill me, but Chicago dogs are absolutely a go-to. Whenever I go back to Chicago, I stop at Portillo's, and I always get 2 or 3 Chicago dogs. They're so good.
Wow, our listeners here in Houston are going to come at you, Cole. Just be
I say
prepared.
they're going to come at me this week.
Good stuff, Cole. Appreciate the time, man. Great to see you this weekend, and we'll talk soon.
Talk out to you soon, bud.
Cole Thompson with us there on Twitter. Give him a follow at Mr. Cole Thompson. Covers the Texans up close for Sports Illustrated. Also covers the NFL and college football for SI. He joined us on the Progressive guest line. Quoting your home insurance just got easier when you use Progressive's Home Quote Explorer. Quote and buy all online at progressive.com. Quick break, and we wrap up our show for a Monday. This is indeed the Jake Asman Show right here on Sports Map Radio.
Sports Map all night.
Chris Ariola, 38, 6-1, 33 knockouts here on Sports Map.